Starting.
So, good morning, good evening, everyone. Radhe Radhe. A very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Hope you had a great weekend and excited to be back into our weekly routine. I'm certainly very excited and very happy to be back, like always. So, let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we shall get underway. Just give me a sec, something I'll have to check what's not working right. So just give me a second. October 9th. Okay, should be okay in a second.
Radhe Radhe everyone. Welcome to Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita session.
Yes. So let's get started. I think I've figured out what's going on. So we should be good to start now. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get underway. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Great. So we'll get started like we always do. We're through our opening prayers where we invoke the blessings of Guru and the original Jagat Guru God himself. So we'll get started. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanurmardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening once again. So welcome to today's session. So Bhagavad Gita is what we are reading by the blessings of Maharajji and Swamiji. We have been doing it for the past 3 years now, close to 3 years. We're closing in our 3 years. And we do a verse a day. And if you have been joining these sessions for a bit of time, you'll understand that we go back and forth. So we go in a sequence, one shloka a day, but then often we go back and forth as well to cover the key concepts and take cross references to go deeper into the shlokas. So the idea is, even though we are going at a pretty slow pace, and that is purely intentional, there's a reason why we are going at a slow pace, because it's not just about covering the curriculum, but also gaining the required understanding, depth, and practical implementation of it. The idea is that by the time we complete this, I don't know how many years would it take, you would have gone through the length and breadth of it, including the depth of it, multiple times. That's the whole idea. So even though we are currently in Shloka 4.26 today, we would go into all the chapters, come back, go forward, come back. We'll explore it through so many lenses that the gist of Bhagavad Gita would have been covered multiple times by the time we complete this. So the focus is on not only gaining the range, but also the depth, and both go hand in hand. So like I said, the length, breadth, and depth, all three aspects would be covered multiple times by the time we complete this book. So don't be bothered about the pace of it. Be rest assured that the key concepts that you need to know would be covered so many times until it becomes like a second nature to you, at least theoretically. The practical aspect is, of course, in our hands. So let's get started. Today we are going to talk about Shloka 4.26. And it's very, very auspicious and with great fortune that we get to read this wonderful scripture, get this opportunity to read it. So we should feel extremely blessed about this. So I'm going to recite this shloka. You're welcome to follow along. Shotrādīnendriyāņanye संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयान्यन्य इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति. We'll take a few hands.
Yeah. Radhe Radhe Samji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Sam.
Radhe Radhe. श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयान्यन्य इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति.
Very nice. Thank you, Sam. Let's take the remaining hands.
Tarunji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Shrotadindriyanyanne Sanyamagnishu Juvati Shabdadin Vishyanyanne Indriyagnishu Juvati.
Very nice. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Shri Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Shotrad Indriya, Shotrad Inindriyananni Sanyamagnishu Juvati Shabdadin Vishayananya Indriyagnishu Juvati.
Very nice. Thank you, Shri Ramya. Munish, Ji, I see a new hand today. Go ahead, Munish.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe Munish ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Shrotradeendriyanye sanmagnishu juvati shabdadina vishyanye indrayagnishu juvati.
Very nice, Munish. Wonderful. All right.
Thank you,
Two more hands. Pragi ji, go ahead, please.
Yes, Radhe Radhe Pragi ji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Thank you. Shotradini indriyanyane Sayama agnishu juvati Shabdadini vishayanyanya Indriya agnishu juhavati.
Very nice. Thank you. Go ahead, Sandhya.
Shrotradeendriyanyanye Sanyamagnishu Juvati Shabdadin Vishayananya Indriyagnishu Juvati.
Very nice. Thank you. So let's get started.
Ji.
Okay, Uday ji. Okay, please go ahead. Quick.
Radhe Radhe Uday ji, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Shrotrad indriyanyanye sanyamagnishu juhvati shabdadin vishayan anya indriyagnishu juhvati. Radhe Radhe.
Okay, thank you, Uday ji. So in this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying, others offer hearing and other senses in the sacrificial fire of restraint. Still others offer sound and other objects of the senses as sacrifice in the fire of the senses. So the sacrifice and restraint are the buzzwords today. And we'll talk about the varnashram dharma today, how it is designed in such a way that we need to restrain and learn the spirit of sacrifice going through these stages. That's the whole idea, because the buzzwords, as you look at in these shlokas, are that, the senses, starting with hearing, and then the other sound and other objects of the senses, how do we make it or indulge them with the spirit of sacrifice as opposed to in the spirit of enjoyment. So let's get started. So by the way, today, the first segment, the soul soup segment, we are going to do a series now. I thought, okay, let's get a bit of a structure around it so that you look out of it like the serial ends, right? And you say, okay, what is going to happen in the next serial or the episode of the serial? Similarly, we'll build on it, okay? And I'll pick up a nugget around, it's of course inspired by Swamiji's writing only. And our topic, soul soup of, this is going to be a running segment where we'll pick up some topics and keep building on those. And it is going to be success, happiness, and fulfillment series. And we'll pick up something and talk about it briefly and before we get into the topic of our discussion in the Bhagavad Gita session. So we have three segments: soul soup segment, more of an appetizer and a generic concept. Then we get into the philosophy, the shloka that we are picking up, and last one we top it up with the chanting, a few chantings that we pick up towards the end of it. So that's typically how we structure it. The philosophy ends sharp at 10, and then people who are interested in doing a bit of chanting and go a little deeper into Kirtan, they stay back and participate along with us. So let's get started. The Soul Soup series on success, happiness, and fulfillment will start off with, okay, here's something being cooked up. So when we cook up something, the recipe that we use, and there is an objective around doing something, right? So here we are cooks of our life. And what we are trying to cook here is a perfect blend of 4 things here, right? In our lives, we need professional excellence, no matter where we are working, whichever profession we are in, we need to feel good there and be adept at what we are doing, right? Our jobs, our bosses, our companies, and our professional environment requires us to be good at what we are doing. So professional excellence is an integral part of our life. In fact, majority of our time goes in work. 8-hour day, if we follow 8-hour day, that goes in work. So professional excellence is one aspect. Then good health is another. Familial comfort is a third one, which includes relative and extended families as well, and the potluck families as well. And then last but not the least, the inner joy. That is the key thing, right? We are all working for inner joy. So while we are trying to have a perfect recipe for each one of these, there's a secret ingredient around it, which enables all of these, right? So which is like our attitude, and not necessarily our aptitude that determines our altitude. That is the key thing in life. So we'll start with it. And as the saying goes, I just love this part, right? That life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to it. This is typically how the ratio goes. 10% is what is typically happening to us, and then 90% really boils down to how are we responding to it. That really defines what we end up becoming in our life. So the key here is to have a good positive attitude around the things. And then when we have a good attitude for our life, we can really make or break out of it, right? And a good attitude is something that determines our altitude and not necessarily our aptitude. In fact, even in US, it is said that more than 80% of the people, 80 to 90%, I think that's a pretty interesting or heavily loaded statistic. They say people, they get fired from their job, not because they are not good technically, not because they don't know Java, not because they don't know the big data or whatever is required of their job. They end up getting fired because of their wrong attitude, just because they are a ticking time bomb. They can pick up fights, they'll find some negative thing and pick up fights with people, find negativity around anything and everything that is happening. And that mindset leads to a failure. And that's a very overwhelming statistic that was conducted, which will tell you that for us to be successful in life, it's not your technical skills. Doesn't matter how sharp you are in life. If you don't have the right attitude, you have gotten it all wrong. So the secret recipe for us to master our professional excellence, even having a good health is directly affected by it. The familial comfort, right? People around you, your mother, father, spouse, kid, family, relatives, friends. If you can't build a good bridge with them, you don't have that recipe for it. It all boils down to your attitude. And of course, once we have all these ducks in rows, the inner joy is an automatic consequence of it. It's a byproduct of it. This is how it goes. So it reminds me of so basically it's a key thing is to having a positive mindset or a good attitude towards things, as opposed to finding negativity in everything. Instead of having a problem oriented mindset, we need to have a solution oriented mindset. Instead of finding the dark spots in your life, you have to focus on the bright spots of your life. Instead of whining and venting over things that we don't have, we need to focus on things that we have that other people only crave for. So that is the attitude that we need to have. So in this series, we'll keep on building on this concept, and there is tons of treasure chest that Swamiji has enabled for us. So we'll pick up it briefly on this segment. By the way, I'll wrap up this segment with a joke. So there was a guy who was lamenting. He was crying. So he was asked, why are you crying? He said, I'm crying because one of my uncle died and he left me $1 million in inheritance, or as in fortune, basically. So this guy asked him, but then why are you crying? He said, but then another uncle of mine also died and he left me $2 million in his inheritance. He said, but then why are you crying? What's the reason for crying? All the more reason you don't need to cry. He said, but then I had another uncle who died who left me $4 million in inheritance. He said, then why are you crying? You have no reason to be crying. He said, but I'm crying because I'm unhappy. Why do people cry? Because they're unhappy. He said, then why are you unhappy? He said, because I have no more uncles left who can die and leave me a fortune. So that is also a mindset, right? So point here being, when we have a problem-oriented mindset, we'll find problems in everything, right? There was a guy who was asked, what does your wife do? He said, she's in manufacturing business. He said, what does she manufacture? She manufactures worries. And a lot of us are in a business of manufacturing worries. That is how our mind is, right? Because of our amygdala, we think of the negative scenarios very quickly. And amygdala is given to us by God for a good reason. So because of that, we speculate scenarios in our head which are not good for us, not conducive for our spiritual growth, not good for our emotional well-being, not good for our health. And of course, when none of this is working, your professional excellence, your health, the familial comfort and joy all will take a beating. So they are all interrelated. So with that said, let's move on. We'll continue to build on this series. But now let's get to the topic of our discussion today. So we are going to talk about, okay, I'm going to show you something. Do you see something? It's not kidney beans, okay? It's not kidney bean, it's a seed. Now this is a seed and it will remain a seed. Hold on to this thought, we'll not get into this discussion. Now when the seed gets sun, air and water, you see what is happening? Something is coming out of this seed. The seed is becoming a small sapling. That's it. No questions asked, nothing. Okay, just keep it in your mind. I'll come back to it now. All right. Let's move on now. What do you think is happening here? You don't have to answer this. Okay, we'll get into now. Now, what is the significance of varnashram dharma in human life is the topic that we are going to talk about today. So you see 4 trees here, the different seasons, as you would know, right? Spring, autumn, winter, and summers. Similar to that, we have our 4 stages of life as defined in our scriptures, right? We have starting with brahmachari and then grihast, vanprasth and sannyasi. These are the 4 varnashram dharmas defined for human beings. Different stations, different stages of life and different expectations which are set at each stage of life. So let's go a little deeper into this concept. So these are the 4 brahmacharis, grihastha, vanprasth and sannyasi. Now these members of the 4 divisions of human life, namely the brahmachari, grihast, they are the ones. They are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. The purpose of this creation, the purpose of anything and everything that is created in this universe is for our spiritual upliftment. And for us to become finally the transcendentalists, go beyond gunas. Transcendental means you are going beyond gunas, material gunas. That is the only thing which is transcendental. So these days, transcendental is becoming a buzzword and it is used very loosely. You know, transcendental this, transcendental that. What transcendental is only when you are going beyond gunas. So only if you are doing Rup Dhyan meditation, trying to simulate God in your head to the best of your ability, even though you haven't seen God, that is truly transcendental. Nothing else is transcendental. It's all in the material world. And since human life is not meant for enjoying our sense gratification, the shloka is talking about restraint and sacrifice of the senses. And it is not meant for sense gratification like the animals. The 4 orders of human life are so arranged, one may become perfect in spiritual life. Now, can you expect that from an animal having some kind of a mode of conduct appropriate for a particular stage in life? No, they are instinctive. They would do whatever their instinct or their scripts would guide them to do. Ahara, bhay, nidra, maithun. These are the 4 things they focus on throughout their lives. Sleeping, defending, mating, and eating, right? We all do that. And animals do that as well. That's all they do. because they are scripted to do that. And they don't have these 4 stages where you are expected to, not only these 4 are the needs basically, are probably defined for you, but then in addition to that, something more is expected now that you are a human. So let's get a little deeper into that. Brahmachari. Okay, let's start with Brahmachari stage. What happens? It must follow the instructions of the Guru, theoretically plus practical. So this is the sacrifice. So in Brahmacharya stage is when we are studying. I think it goes beyond high school. Here, people, they lose the concept of being a Brahmacharya much before high school, right? That's not the idea. Then we are gravitating more towards the animalistic instincts. Here, the focus should be go by the word of your teachers. The whole pursuit of human life in this stage is to absorb knowledge like a sponge at that point. And you, of course, have to control your mind by abstaining from sense gratification. Right? Friday night plan and everything can wait. And at least in this stage is what the appropriate code of conduct would be at this stage, because it is expected that you are going to restrain your senses, and your goal in life is this stage is to really acquire the knowledge required to lead a fulfilling life, not just successful, but a fulfilling life. You may be successful and yet not be leading a fulfilling life. And you may not be successful and yet be leading a fulfilling life. So the key here is, what are the rules that you need to understand? What are the divine principles you need to understand? What are the material principles you need to understand to be successful in your later life? That's the whole idea. And sense gratification is not the goal at this stage. So that is the sacrifice required of you at this stage. And this is not just limited or applicable to the actions alone. It is in thought, speech, and action, all 3. So even in thoughts, if you are indulging in any of sensory gratification, then you are actually violating the principles of Brahmacharya. That is how, strictly speaking, the definition goes. Now, chanting and hearing the glories of Lord, ear of Brahmachari is the Yagna Kund, Vedic sound. They are the ahutis, the fire is the consciousness of the Brahmachari. So the point here is, it's expected them to exercise restraint and absorb knowledge at this stage. Now, where is the heat from Brahmachari? It is mentioned, it is Sayam Agni, control. Challenge is to keep self-restraint. That is the key thing. The senses are controlled to not enjoy anything from money, name, fame, man, women, relationship, etc. So basically, all complete sensory control is something that is expected of human beings when they are at this stage, Brahmacharya stage. Now let's move on to the grihasthis or householders. Okay, that's where most of the people can relate to and would be having silent laughs as well. Now, what is expected of the grihasthas? They have to deal with sense objects, said money, property, husband-wife relationship, children, name, fame, etc. with restraint. The heat there is, it is like Sayam Agni for grihasthas, it is Indriya Agni. It's like somebody has put a cake or a sweet on your tongue and he told you not to eat. Okay, that is a challenge they have to face. And that is why grihastha's ashram is higher than Brahmachari ashram. Now you have to exercise even more restraint, right? But the way it is designed is that, of course, when you understand the deeper principles and go in accordance to that, you automatically, your senses will start getting under the restraint, because that is the power of it. But if you make sensory gratification as a goal of your life, that is a different thing, right? Human beings have been endowed with free will, and that free will they can exert in whatever they want. When your knowledge itself is not proper and you think that sensory gratification is the only goal of life, then it can lead you astray. But when you understand, actually, this is a stepping stone to something higher, it will set you up for the next stage as well of life that our scriptures are expecting us to move towards or transition towards. Now, in this case, Yagna Kund is senses, offering is sense objects, sacrifices being regulated. If they indulge in excessive sense gratification, it will cause suffering. Okay, so as a grahastha you are suffering, then that means you are indulging in excessive sense gratification, excessive attachment, excessive participation in the drama of life that is unfolding around you. That is what the problem of grihasthas is, right? My kid doesn't do this, my spouse is like this or this and that. So people just make it on and on and on. That story, the sansar or the world around them keeps on expanding, and their troubles also keep on expanding. Okay, first it was limited to one person, then two, then three, then whole family, and then who all, right? So this is what happens typically in the Grihastha state, unless we understand the deeper principles on how to regulate your life with some deeper principles. Now, if you look at it, the brahmacharis, they are the legs of the society, symbolically. Grihasthas are the bellies. I'll explain you how. Vanprasthis are the arms. Sannyasis are the head of the society. Okay, what are the roles they are playing? Grihasthas are important because their job description is difficult. The greatest tension of Grihasthas in the Vedic society, basically, if your daughter has to get married, where will the bridegroom come from? From the brahmacharya ashram. And brahmacharis come from Grihasthas. So all the ashrams, they have a place in society. They support each other. If when the sannyasis, they would go, like, if you know, they would go and beg for alms. They would go around and beg for alms. Who would provide them alms? Another sannyasi, the Grihasthas would provide them. So the balance is made such that at every stage you can support the other cycle. That doesn't mean you have to go through all. Okay, that's not the idea. You can skip some ashrams as well. Okay, these are for people who are excessively involved in the world. So our Vedas, our scriptures have given us, all right, fine. You have a lot of attachment to the world. Then one of the ways to regulate that is to go through as per the scriptural injunction. Don't go forward in your life just like an animal would do. That's all it is saying. So as a human being, if you keep on having go for unbridled joy and sensory gratification, of course it will lead to suffering. But the problem is that that suffering, you have perpetuated it in forms of sanskars across lifetimes. So he said, all right, fine, you live as humans, but then at least honor the station of life that you are in. Don't get excessively engaged and indulged in things which have no ending at all. That is the problem that happens, right? We are not able to exercise restraint during brahmacharya. And then when we become grihasthas, we want to carry it forward and extend it to our next life, forgetting about vanprasth or the sannyas aspect of it. It doesn't happen in today's world. But if you do that, then you are aligning to the goal of life, and it will automatically not only bring about the regulation of senses, but also give your mind an incentive to understand the deeper secrets or the deeper principles of life. There's a reason why these 4 stations are created. Right? God was not out of mind or high on crack when he created all these ashrams, right? There was a reason for that. Okay, and that reason we have to understand. Vijay is okay, nothing. Yes, there's a reason for that, and there is a method to the madness, right? Whatever God has created is very, very profound and deep and for our benefit only. And when we do that, it's like, just imagine going out in a city, going out in let's say New York City, like a very crowded city, right? Or any big crowded city, and there are no traffic lights. What will happen? Mayhem and chaos will prevail. So just imagine these stations, these 4 stations are like traffic lights. All right, now the time is to turn red. You have to, so if there are no traffic lights, there are no rules, nothing, then there's absolutely no difference between us and animals, and there's absolutely no reason for us to be reborn as humans quickly. By the way, in normal course, it is said when you get human life, that doesn't mean you'll be reborn as a human. And you know how much wait time there could be? It could be millions of kalpas. And we know what a kalpa is. The definition of kalpa, one day of Brahma, is 1,000 mahayugs. 1,000 mahayugs means one full Kalyug, one full Satyug, one full Treta Yug, and one full Dwapar. Combine it all together, which is 4.32 billion years. Multiply it by 1,000, that is one kalpa. And they say in human body, you get it in crores, in millions of kalpas pass by, and then you get a human body. That is how precious it is. Okay, so once we understand the importance of human life, then we will not let it fritter away. And these stations are an attempt, not an attempt, it's kind of a framework God has given for us to regulate our senses. If we are not in devotion, if we are too attached to the world, if we don't believe in God, any of this, then it leads to this. this will automatically bring in the discipline, and in due course of time, your mind will start appreciating the deeper principles. That's what God is saying. Let's move on. So these are our senses. They're called senses, but if you think deeply about it, they are non-senses. They are the reasons why we keep on repeating. Okay, so we have to make sense of our sense because it's currently nonsense. So when we make sense of it, our senses, then things will start falling in place, because right now we are utilizing it completely in a different direction altogether. Now, Indriyagnishu is called sense control or restraint. Indriya Samya or sense control, the yogic practice is recommended for persons who are too much in the bodily concept of life. The yogic practice was recommended for general population so that they can control the senses, and slowly they take to this platform of controlling their senses, or Rajogun, Sattvagun, Tamagun. So one has to promote himself to the platform of Sattvagun. So it starts with Tamasic. Tamasic means lying lazy and just indulge, enjoy. Right? The spirit in Tamasic mode is life is like an ice cream, enjoy it before it melts. And the Sattva says, no, life is like a candle. You burn yourself and give light to others. So that transformation or that transition happens when we do yogic practice, when we look at expanding our bubble and serving people, when we look at doing yoga instead of bhog. So that is this is the practice that enables our transition from tamagun to rajagun to sattvagun. Right? So this is how it goes. And then now let's look at this story. So this is a story of how strong our senses are. We cannot underestimate our senses. In fact, your senses have the ability to surprise you by going after things that you never thought would attract you. Okay, that is how strong the objects of our senses are. The object of our senses are beyond our senses. The object or the mind is beyond our senses, and so are the object of our senses as well. So this is a story to illustrate this point of sage Vishwamitra. Now, Menaka, she was whenever somebody becomes powerful, the first person who gets insecure, because he's also in material world, although elevated, is Indra. He's a very insecure person. Okay, he always thinks, okay, the first thing that this guy is going to go after is my asan, Indrasan, the king of celestial abode. So Vishwamitra, when he was in his tapasya, that made Indra insecure, and he sent Menaka to disrupt his tapasya. And Vishwamitra, he did not even open his eyes. He heard the tinkling of bangles, and he got distracted. And when he looked at Menaka, he became attached. And then, of course, they had a conjugal relationship, and the birth of Shakuntala happened. So there's Kalidasa has written that novel, Shakuntala, but the key here is he was not able to control his senses and was attached by a beautiful woman. And that is how strong our senses are unless you control them. So the restraint of senses is something that is recommended. Now, how you can do that is a different discussion altogether, okay, which we will of course have a discussion on as well to complete this topic. But the point is that our senses can lead us astray at any moment. And our senses in Kathopanishad, they have been equated to those 5 wild horses, which are running away with the chariot in which we are sitting as a passenger. No control, those 5 horses, which are 5 senses. The reins, which is supposed to be our mind, should be controlling them. Absolutely no control. The charioteer, which is our intellect, is simply following along. And those wild horses are running in directions where they only seek their own objects. Your eyes will say, see this. Your nose will say, smell this. Your tongue will say, taste this. And typically the strongest sense that we have is our tongue. Okay, that the taste thing, something that people find most difficult to resist. Even if somebody is dying of diabetes, once they are addicted to sweets, they cannot give it up. I've seen so many cases. They would not prefer to die. Nobody prefers to die, but they cannot resist it, even if it means it's poison for their body. That is how strong our tongue is. So our senses are very strong, and it can only be restrained through a lot of practice. practice and contemplation, and of course, grace of God is needed in everything, right? So that is the key message, the control aspect of it. The technology to do that, we will talk about it in more details. That's a topic in itself, probably in coming sessions. The next session probably will talk about the technology, how to restrain those senses. But let's go back to the first slide that I had shown. I had shown the seed, if you remember it. So the seed is there. Now what is going to happen is this seed is seed. You're not even aware the seed is. But the moment it gets the sunlight, the fertilizer, the air, the water, the seed is going to sprout. So what your senses crave for, or what your secret stash is, you may not even be aware of it. Even if you had thought about something remotely in your mind, it is still an impression. It may not be a strong impression, but it is still an impression. And that is not limited to this life. It could be in any of the lifetimes. So whenever you made a sankalp, however insignificant, small it is still recorded. And if that seed is there that you have not burnt as yet, the day it gets the required conducive environment, it will start sprouting. That is how our senses and our desires work. So you may think you have controlled something, but unless the quality of your mind has cleansed it, stamped it out, stamped that particular thing out from its root, that seed is still there. And the day the opportunity meets, the intent meets the opportunity, it will manifest. This is how it works. It's very simple. So then what to do is the question, right? So we'll talk about it. Let it be a suspense for today. There has to be a technology to stamp out these seeds also, because when seed is there, you may have exercised a lot of willpower, but if the seed is there, you can never be sure that you have stamped out the cause of your desire or that sensory indulgement when the opportunity presents itself. So how do we really stamp it out from the root itself is what we are going to discuss in our coming sessions. With that said, for benefit of people who joined late, I wanted to tell you that we are going to talk about a series on success, happiness, and fulfillment series. Starting with today, we spoke about the attitude, that it's our attitude and not our aptitude that determines our altitude. So look out for this series. We will build on the concepts, because all of us, none of us can say that I'm not seeking professional excellence or good health or familial comfort and finally inner joy. All of us are looking for it. And how to enable that in our day-to-day lives. Some of the tools we will talk about, starting with attitude, of course, will build on this concept as part of our Soul Soup segment. And then, of course, our philosophical discussion around the topic that we pick up, which is Bhagavad Gita topic. And tomorrow we are going to talk about how do we address the seed itself of the sensory indulgement that we crave for. So with that said, let's move on. Today, I'm going to but have a bit of a discussion on renunciation or sacrifice is done from a position of strength or weakness. This is a question. It is a very deep question. Now you say that, I'll tell you a story around it, just to say that. So you say, you know what? I find it very difficult to resist eating rasgullas. So what I have done is, I don't bring it to my house at all. Okay, great. But does it mean when the opportunity would present itself, you'll be able to resist? That is the question. Have you really stamped it out? Have you really grown out of it? Or it's just a willpower that you are exerting where you don't have a choice, and that's how you're resisting it? That is the question. So there's a story I'll tell you. There was a Brahmin who was doing his Prabhat Vandan. He was near the river and doing his morning prayers, and he had some rice puffs in his plate, and he was thinking, how much rice puff should I offer to God and how much should I keep for myself? So he was debating in his mind, and he was saying, okay, maybe I should keep this 50 for myself and 50 for God. No, 60 for myself, 20 for God, or 40 for God. What will God do? 80 for myself, 20 for God. And he was just debating all those ratios until a gust of wind came and blew away the entire rice puff from his plate. And when it was blown off, he said, okay, God, 100% for you. Now, is it sacrifice or renunciation? Now, with that said, let's talk about this topic. When we try to restrain our senses, what is a true renunciation or sacrifice? Is it done from a position of strength or from a position of weakness? Let's talk about that and reflect on it. What are the things we are trying to work on, and what kind of situations we are creating around it to control it? Or is it going to hit on the root cause of it? Or is it going to give you just a symptomatic relief until you hit the real cause of it? And let's open it up for any question that you may have on what we have discussed as well.
Preeti ji.
Yes, Preeti ji.
Yes, Radhe Radhe everyone. Of course, it comes from the position of strength. Any sacrifice or renunciation, as you just narrated in the story, the puff tries, it all went away, and then he said, God, it was for you. It is the greatest sign of weakness, I would say.
True.
And there was a second question you just said, Nitinji. I've lost the track when I was preparing an answer for this. Can you just say that one? Or do you also not remember that?
If you lost the track, then how can I remember it? Okay, I lost it.
No, but it was a very good thing you said. It was a
I was
very
talking about how are you doing that, restraining it? Are you eliminating the cause of it, or you're just having a symptomatic relief around it? Probably this is that too.
yes. In the case of the Brahmin who was in the morning at the river, it was a symptomatic relief. But if we really sacrifice or learn to control our senses from the position of strength, it would be from the inner grit that we would have.
True, very true.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, very nice. Yes, there was a saint who was very attached to apples. So what he did was he kept an apple in front of him and see it rot. That is how he exerted that part where he has to not only exert his willpower but grow out of that concept, right? But different people different. But yeah, the key is to really grow out of it, as opposed to exerting your willpower where the why is not clear and you have still not burnt the seed inside you. It can come back in days, months, years, sometimes even decades. I'll tell you a story about it as well. Yes, Preeti ji, let's hear from one Preeti ji to another Preeti ji.
Yes, Radhe Radhe, Preeti ji.
Yes, I have renounced eating sweets and all that stuff, and I lose weight, and then I don't know, it comes back with the vengeance force, and here I am eating laddus and whatnot, and I've gained double the weight, and I've been struggling with this for ages, and I think it's more like a subconscious programming. I remember my mom said, eat, I don't know where we are going, if there might be food or not. Maybe in those days she had her own thinking, but you subconsciously take all that into your it goes in your subconscious mind, and you're trying to change those habits, and it is just so hard. I'm like, I have tried all my life to lose weight, then gain it back, lose weight, gain it back, and I renounce the sweets and they just come right back to me, and I don't know what to do about this whole situation. So help me, God.
Yeah, so we'll talk about how to burn the seeds tomorrow. That concept we'll talk about. It reminds me of the basin killer. Do every time I bring it, my mind conveniently gives it a reason. You know what? Oh, once I finish it this time, then I'll have no more left to eat. Right? So I finish it, and then my mind convinces it to get it again. For the little one, and I again give a reason. Once I finish it off, there'll be no more to eat. Right? And then I'll not eat. So yeah, your mind is very good at making excuses and keeping on indulging, right? It's very difficult to control our senses in certain aspects, but we'll talk about the tools around it tomorrow, as well as some of the techniques that can be applied to grow out of some of the things and burn the seeds altogether. So thank you, Preeti ji, for sharing that. Yes, Sandhya, you wanted to ask something as well, and Falguni ji after that.
So, couple of things. So one thing is there is this Hindi muhavra called Angur Khatte Hain. So that actually applies in this context, right? If we are operating from a position of weakness and saying that we are doing a sacrifice, then actually it is that Angur Khatte Hain.
It is not sacrifice. Actually, yeah, it is actually when you have a choice and you do that. That is what true renunciation is. When you are in a position of power and then you forgive, then you have exerted something different. When you are anyway helpless, then what would you do? When you didn't have a choice, what can you give up at that moment, right? And same thing happens for the sadhana aspect of it as well. When you have a reason and you go against that, your instinct at that point, right? When you have a reason to be angry and you don't get upset, that is what sadhana is. When you have a reason to be bitter and still you don't get it, then you are cutting a corner spiritually. So that is how it works. You have to swim against the tide. And then when
Right.
we get that power, then we are evolving spiritually. Very true.
So as far as my understanding is concerned, it's like we have a stimulus and a response. We do not have to remove the stimulus, but we have to work on the response. And that can happen through Tattva Gyan, like through the right knowledge. If we have that, then that can, I mean, I personally feel that contemplation about that can actually help us control our senses, irrespective of our circumstances. Otherwise, yeah, it can be tricky and difficult.
No, I think we brought in a good point. It is called a responsibility. Responsibility means ability to respond. So ability to respond means you have introduced a gap between the synapses. Usually there is. What is a synapsis? There is a trigger and there is a reaction, almost like a sneeze. But when you introduce just a little bit of gap in between, then a lot of good things can happen in that gap. And that ability to respond as opposed to react is called responsibility, taking responsibility. But typically, we like to enjoy our dopamine kick by venting it out immediately, reacting immediately. That is how we are wired. And that is where we lose out on an opportunity to give a bit of a push to our spiritual growth. But if we can do that, what we get is, we may not get the dopamine, but the serotonin that comes afterwards is much higher. And God enjoys it as well on our behalf, that he says, wow, now I'm happy. This person has done something. Wow. So if we say God to say wow, then we have to start learning to respond as opposed to react in those kind of situations. Yes, Falguni?
And there are a few comments as well, which I can read after Falguni ji. Or Radhe Radhe Falguni ji.
Ha, Radhe Radhe. Nitin ji, I want to share a small story and just make one comment. So this small story is with respect to this soul soup, which you just mentioned in the beginning of the session. It is with respect to the attitude. So the story goes like there was this small house in Mumbai where a guest had come, and so next day in the morning the guest got up and he was having his tea, and this house had a small courtyard. So he heard a very beautiful voice singing a very beautiful song. So he just was very curious. So he went out and he saw a small girl. And in India we had these women coming and doing the vessels and other such things. So you saw a girl who was cleaning the vessels, but she was wearing these very tattered long skirt and a blouse and a half sari, but she was so happy and she was singing a beautiful song. So touched by this, the guest thought that, okay, let me buy her some new clothes. So the next day the guest bought some new clothes, gave it to the girl, and the day after that, he again heard the song. So he came outside, he saw the girl, and she was wearing the new dress which the guest had given. So he was very happy. Okay, she's wearing the dress which I have given, and so on. Again, at the third day, the guest heard the song, and he just came out to say hello to the girl, because now they had like met a couple of times. So again he saw that the girl was again in her old skirt, tattered clothes, but so happy and singing a very beautiful song. So the message here is that it's the attitude which which really matters, whether you are wearing old clothes, new clothes, but it's the inner, like as Nitin ji says, right, that it is the inner joy which was being reflected in the song that she was singing. So I just thought that I would share it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. It's your attitude, the way you
Yeah.
look at things that matters more than the external things that we accumulate. If money and material accumulation could be directly translated to happiness or the inner joy, then the richest person in this world would have been the most happy person. Apparently, that's not the case. Tennessee, I think, one of the states in US which has the lowest per capita income, and on the happiness index is one of the highest, right? So there's no correlation between money or material accumulation or ability to be able to accumulate with the happiness or the inner joy part of it. That means it is much more deeper. There's a deeper secret around acquiring that, and that is what we learn through Bhagavad Gita and our scriptures, that we are a fountainhead of bliss inside us. How do we tap into that? Is the process of spirituality. We are tapping into something which is already inside us.
Right. Nitinji, one more little thing. Can I go ahead, please?
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
is it a question? A
No,
quick question?
no, yeah, it is. No, this is not a question. This is just a little small response to what Preeti ji just mentioned, about her diet, like, that she cannot have control, like. So can I just respond a little bit to it? So
Sure.
I just,
1 minute.
yeah, so
we can get some questions as well. Please go ahead.
yeah, so I just read one small story where there is a robber who comes to a yogi, and he says that please help me, because I've been robbing and I've taken several oaths. So many times I have taken oath and said, okay, I will not do this, and again I keep on doing it. I have taken I've tried all means, but I have always failed at it. I have never been able to restrain my this robbing streak which is there in me. So the yogi says that okay, you do one thing. He says that whenever you go to rob, the moment you touch the thing, when you open the tijori, you just become very aware of each and every action that you are taking and each and every thought that passes through your mind. Every action, like you're opening the tijori, so become aware that you're opened the tijori. When you're touching that money, become aware that it is not your money, it is someone else's money or someone else's jewel. And he says that do that, and then you see what happens. So the robber tried it. So he went to a very rich man's house, he opened the tijori, but he could not take the money. So he comes back to the yogi and he says that I tried, and for the first time in my life I have become successful. I could, in spite of jewels being in front of me, I could not touch them. So, probably I don't know whether, but this is like I thought I would just share it, that to become aware of, very consciously aware of every thought or action that you take might help,
Thank
Radhe
you.
Radhe. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that story. Yes. In fact, we've spoken about this concept of having that self-awareness or the witness consciousness. Sometimes what happens is we start participating. It's like you are a spectator watching a play. But when you decide to participate in that play, get onto the stage, you get implicated in that. But if you simply take a back seat and observe, what you are thinking, why you're thinking, you would be able to dissociate yourself from that act. And then the very fact that you can observe yourself will start bringing in the required transformation. It's a very powerful tool called Sakshi Bhav or witness consciousness. That means if we are able to read our thought, we are different from our thought. If we are able to read our mind, we are different from our mind. And if we are able to observe and let it pass, then we have cut a corner spiritually already. The problem happens when we try to ride our mind, associating ourselves with our mind and the thoughts that it is generating. Great point. Thank you. Yes, Sandhya? Want to read anything or any questions? Yeah.
So a couple of comments and a few questions. So Prachi ji is asking, is it from knowledge that gives strength to renunciate?
Okay, so you want me to disclose the secret today? Knowledge is, of course, it's one of the tools right here, where it all starts with the right knowledge. If your knowledge is erroneous, if your knowledge is coming from your friends, if your knowledge is coming from your grandmother, I mean, your grandmother could be wise, I'm not belittling that, but if it is coming from a source which is not vetted through scriptures, if it's coming from Google, then that aspect would be a little shaky. Your foundation might be shaky. You're letting that knowledge happen to you. But if your knowledge is coming from a bona fide source and you have contemplated enough on it, and that knowledge has become wisdom, then it will become a second nature for you. So yes, knowledge or deeper contemplation around something is certainly one of the great tools around it as well. But I'll give you a silver bullet as well tomorrow. Okay, knowledge is
People have started guessing the answers, like because you have created so much of
I'll have a
suspense.
quiz master take note of that and you'll get some bonus points, okay, if you get it right.
Monica ji says, Naam Jap, question mark, and then next message is, it is Naam Jap, so many exclamatory marks. And she's saying, I'm experiencing it.
Yeah, so there are tools, and then we'll talk about a silver bullet around it as well. Let it be a suspense, right? So that you have an incentive to join tomorrow and bring in your friends and family as well. So yes,
Okay, and few
Mike
more.
Vijayji had raised his hand. See, the rule here in this session is once you raise your hand, you're not allowed to pull it back, okay? We pick up your hand and we call you up after that.
So I remember you said contemplation on knowledge leads to wisdom. So I am assuming what you're saying is take the Bhagavad Gita, keep reading it. As you keep on reading it, it's supposed to correlate with your personal life experience. And then you kind of understand what applying this knowledge means. Therefore, it's wisdom. What am I missing here?
No, yes, you are right. In fact, it is said that our scriptures say that you take a piece of knowledge and ruminate over it. Rumination is a process which is followed by cow. When it eats grass, it has 6 stomachs. I don't know why God gave it 6 stomachs. So it chews it, puts into second stomach, and then brings it back, chews it, second stomach, third, fourth, and that is how it's able to absorb that grass. And similarly, if the knowledge is coming and going, you're not thought deeply about it, it will never become a wisdom. And when it becomes applied knowledge, now the moment presents itself and you are able to pull that knowledge from your hat and apply it and take benefit from it, it becomes a realization or a wisdom at that point. But yes, sufficient contemplation is a stepping stone to wisdom or a realized knowledge for sure. Of course, you need a bit of God's grace there as well, because when we are, like, for example, when we are reading Bhagavad Gita, for you to even make sense of those words, you need God's grace for that. But the fact that you are here and listening to it, that means it's already there. But then he leaves it to your effort also. It's not going to become wisdom just by hearing it once. If you're really sincere about it and you contemplate upon it, and then the magic will start unfolding. When this knock will happen next time a situation presents itself, you'll say, hey, by the way, I read in Bhagavad Gita, now it's time to apply this principle and see what happens. So yes, sufficient contemplation and then willingness to implement it with faith is something that would bridge the gap between knowledge and wisdom. Hope I answered. Yeah, okay.
Couple of comments. Smita ji says renunciation is tyag, which can be temporary due to weaknesses. But sacrifice is yagya, which is permanent. Idam and mam, which is strength.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, Smita ji. Thank you.
And Shweta ji is saying binge eating is the classic example of reacting to your problems and not tackling it aptly.
Yeah, binge eating is a good way to get your dopamine kick, right? And wishing that worries will go away. People, when they get anxious, they eat sugar. The cookie and coffee is the best remedy in those cases, but it is wishing away a problem. Problem will not go away with that.
Kumarji said solution is not to buy sweets. Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind, the seeds are still there. So we have to get out of it. That is more permanent.
I think in Nitinji, there's something with this laddu topic, okay? Lots of people get excited. So even Pratyusha ji says laddu is God.
Yeah, besan ka laddu is like, I don't know what happened. In one of my lifetimes, I think I probably died of famine wishing that I only had laddu. So I don't know what happens when I see one, well-made one, of course. So, and by the way, thank you for sending me. So when I was in India, I don't know, one of the sessions I said that, and she was sweet enough to send me sweets. and that sweet was a besan ka laddu. So thank you, Smita ji, for that. Yes, Pratyusha, you wanted to add something?
Unmute. Radhe
Yeah.
Radhe everyone. Radhe Radhe sir. So actually I was thinking about like my son. So I have a 4-year-old. He's like proper mind. He wants to do everything that I say no. So he teaches me, I'm in a position of power. I can scold him, but I want to deal. I don't know how to deal with it. So the
Have you
knowledge
tried?
comes. I read. Huh?
Have you tried reverse psychology on him? You
Yeah,
say,
yeah. What I do these days is I give him options. Say, you do this. I let him do. Okay, you do whatever, but this will happen. If you do this, that will happen. Now you do. So then he figures it out on his own. And I have learned patience because of that.
I think you have to
I
devise
don't do.
game plan around it, because kids are very, they go by their script. Whatever is there in their mind, they will go with that. Even adults, their pravarti is there, right? So we also work with our pravarti. So kids, their intellect, I think they say after 12 years, they develop that power of discrimination. Maybe for some, it might happen in 10. Until then, they are instinctive. Very few kids are
So
blessed.
the seed thing that you said, the patience, checking your patience seed came when, my child came.
We are all stubborn. See, we all
Nice.
are kids, grown-up kids, trust me. We throw tantrums as well. And that to basically do away with those tantrums, or how to deal with our own tantrums, is what spirituality is all about. So we are also kids in a lot of ways. I'll tell you a joke. There was a guy about pravarti, or our tendencies, right, which is so hard to overcome. So there was a guy, he always wanted to negotiate. Right? They are bargainers. No matter what it is, you want to bargain. Even if you're getting a good price, you want to bargain, because it will not give you a satisfaction until you bargain, right? So this guy was told, okay, this how much does this particular, wanted to buy something, I think maybe something. So he said, how much does it cost? He said, 100 rupees. He said, no, I'll give you 50. He said, okay, give me 50. He said, no, I'll give you 25. He said, no, I'll give, he said, okay, 25. He said, no, I'll give you 12 and a half. So this guy got frustrated. He said, okay, you take it for free. He said, if you're going to give me free, I'll take 2. So he will keep on negotiating, right? So that is how our tendencies are. Once we are wired, we are wired. We have a better odds of beating our pravrti through proper knowledge. But kids, we can only hope, at least their foundation is strong. So
We still need that knowledge, how to deal with. So right now we are trying to manage our life and our things, like whatever our tendencies are, by reading these intellectual things, that it helps us in cultivating these good habits. Likewise, we need something to handle the kids also. So contemplation comes there also.
If there is one manual that is not one size fit all for anyone, if that is manual to manage kids. Every kid is unique. You can't create a manual, but the broader practices, maybe you can do one of our parenting courses. I think a lot of people run that these days. So check it out. But yeah, each one to its own, some of the best practices around. And best way to inspire kids is to lead by action. They observe us, and then when we have our weak moments, they pick up those stuff. So if we can become role models for them, at least to begin with, I think that will help them, especially some of the things we want them to do. But thank you, Pratyusha. Let's move on. Ajitji, you wanted to say something before we move to our next segment, because it's almost time for our next segment. And then I think Sandhya wanted to say something as well. Yes, Ajitji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe, Ajitji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Actually, I got 2-3 points. One is that you have compared the animal with the human being. And now further my query is for the gender, who is more powerful, female or male, in regarding the Sayyam sacrifice?
I don't know about
and
that.
Pratyusha has already given the hint. The Matru Sakti is
Scriptures say
equivalent.
Matu, Mata, Shatguna Pita. Basically, mother is 100 times more. And even if you look at it, right, mother is endowed with the responsibility of bringing forth life. So that pain, it is said that the labor pain is the highest pain. Highest pain.
No.
After death, and birth, of course, that one somebody has to endure. And still people you can go for 2 or 3 babies, they forget after that. So that is one of the highest pain. Second highest pain in life after labor pain is moving your house. Okay, by the way. So anyways, so the labor pain is the highest pain, and only a mother can endure that. Nobody can scan.
My interpretation is that they are handling the child all the way round the clock, and our mind is man is like child. So they are practicing much more than the father does.
Very true, very true. That's very true.
Secondly, you see the example of Israel and Hamas war recently started. The Israel was more powerful than the Hamas, definitely, in all ways. But Hamas has attacked when the Israel was sleeping, found sleeping. 5,000 rockets they have launched, and none of them retaliate by the Israel. They got the action after a few hours, or quite late. So the idea is the lesson is that your consciousness, almost all the wrong things happens when you are unconscious. If you are conscious, and see where is your focus when you are doing the fasting and you see the beggar.
So Israel example, you said that was related to ability to respond, right? Not react. Is that why you brought up that example?
No, consciousness. Consciousness means awareness. When you are awakened or you are sleeping, they are found sleeping actually. That particular moment they have attacked, that particular date, they were found sleeping.
Okay.
Even though they were very strong.
Got it. So they were not aware. Got it.
Yeah.
And what is the third point? Yeah, Ajitji.
Third point I will tell you tomorrow. I've forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you for creating a reverse suspense for me. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, can I quickly read? There are few more comments.
And then we can get the question segment. Maybe 2 or 3 hands.
No, we also have Seva announcement for today.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, let's do that
So,
announcement.
Prabhat Bhaiya has said surrender to God and Guru is also a key to the lock. And Manish Ji says Swamiji mentions the ostrich and how it buries its head in the ground and hoping the problems it's facing will go away.
Right.
And we also turn to food and other things in the hope of quenching it, but it never does.
True. It's a very nice analogy. We cannot wish away the problem just by hiding behind our temporary relief measures that we take, like whether eating sugar or eating food or stuff like that, or watching a movie or listening to a song or doing dancing, right? Yes.
And Prachiji has put a question, isn't second pain the burns caused from fire?
I don't know. Second one I just made by myself. Okay. I have gone through that pain multiple times. That's why I'm saying.
The house moved, right?
Statistically, in fact, it is stated, I think I read it somewhere as well. But yes, burning from fire could be painful as well. Maybe nobody documented it. But
okay. Yeah. Quickly, feedback tracker, I've posted the link and now I am moving on to the Seva announcements, just highlighting the teams and their efforts for the past week.
Right. And I would say all the Sevas, like, the Sevas at Arkiti Temple, that team did with a beautiful presentation that they did. And even if, somebody's participating in road shows and any other Sevas, we should account for those as well. And then like Michelle, if she's part of any team and she's contributing towards writing Seva, Jyoti, right? All those we should count it because that contributes directly to the helping spread this knowledge and share it with others as well.
Yeah, so any sevas done with, I guess, for the time being, RKT, CIC, we will consider them for the scores, right?
Right.
But one needs to note them down. So I see this week there is no reporting from Ananya team, but people from Vinamra, Enthusiastic and Selfless teams have reported. And so cheers to all those who have reported and are up on the scoreboard. Vinamra team is leading. I see a lot of green. Enthusiastic is not far behind, and selfless is also actually keeping up with it. Shamji has become so consistent in filling up the scores. I mean, and Jyoti is there, Pallavi ji is there, and then Vinamra team, Sairam ji, I see his name everywhere, Urvi, Swati ji, Rupa ji, many people, and enthusiastic team, Prashasti ji, Komal ji, Chikki.
Very nice.
Yeah. So we have a good representation from all the teams except for Ananya team. And yeah, I hope they will also start filling up their scores and their names will show in the next week's feedback scoreboard.
And if
That's
any of you is wondering what are these are the 4 teams that you have created. If you are inspired and you want to join any of these teams and report your seva efforts as well, feel free to. Monica ji says she wants to rejoin another team. You want to
Monica, really, that will be fun. No?
We need to unmute her probably. Yes, go ahead. What are you saying?
Radhe, no, never. Enthusiastic is the team for me, and all the participants who are part of Enthusiastic will always remain enthusiastic. Thank you.
They can remain enthusiastic, but in other teams.
No. My team only. That's the team.
Oh,
I was waving to Michelle Ji in case if she wants to decide. She can think about enthusiastic. We can talk over the phone or whatever she wants to.
Michelle, you are already being poached, one of the teams.
other teams, where are you? You need to do your part.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So any
Yeah.
any announcements? I think one is the related.
There are 2 announcements. So Navratri festival is starting soon from October 15th. So there will be a 9-day long Navratri festival at Radhakrishna temple. And actually, I realized there's a live professional band coming all the way from Gujarat, India, for performing in this Navratri celebration. So people who are here, definitely don't miss out on it and come and enjoy Garba and Dandiya. And then we have Diwali Mela. That's the biggest Diwali Mela happening in US, I heard. And so do not miss out on that. We have reels going on. You have seen that last time. So please do participate. Check out our social media for more details on that. I've also posted the link. So that's it. And also Tarunji volunteered for today's devotional segment, Nitinji.
I have volunteered myself as well. Okay.
You are there and Tarunji is also there.
So there's going to be laser show in Diwali, a lot of fireworks. We have some Bollywood celebrities coming in as well, if you care.
Natu singer, Yazin Nizar.
I can't believe my luck. Natu singer is going to come.
See?
So you can dance away to glory. There's going to be excellent food, festivities around. That's about it. And lot of fireworks.
30 feet long Ravan, the hen.
Yeah, 30 feet long. If it was 25, it wouldn't have excited me. It's 30 feet. You can't miss it for anything, I'm telling you. All right. So with that said, Tarunji, you want to sing that? So let's limit our singing to 2 minutes so that more people get a chance. So, and then fill it up for the feedback tracker for the next day. And 2 minutes is what we will try to cap it at for everyone. Who's going to go first? Tarunji wants to sing. Go ahead, Tarunji. Then I can recite a few lines and then we can wrap it up. Yes, Tarunji, go ahead.
Sure. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
पार करेंगे नैया भज कृष्ण कन्हैया, तो तेरी पार करेंगे नैया भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। निस दिन भज गोपाल को प्यारे, निस दिन भज गोपाल को प्यारे, मोर मुकुट पीताम्बर वारे, मोर मुकुट पीताम्बर वारे, भक्तों के रखवैया भज कृष्ण कन्हैया, तो तेरी पार करेंगे नैया भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। स्वास्थ्य स्वास्थ्य भज नंद दुलारे, स्वास्थ्य स्वास्थ्य भज नंद दुलारे, वो ही बिगड़े काज सवारे, वो ही बिगड़े काज सवारे, नटवर चतुर रिझैया भज कृष्ण कन्हैया, वो तेरी पार करेंगे नैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। ग्वाल बाल संग धेनु चरावे, लूट लूट दधी माखन खावे। ग्वाल बाल संग धेनु चरावे, लूट लूट दही माखन खावे। चमत्कार करवैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। वो तेरी पार करेंगे नैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। नरसिंह जी ने टेर लगाई, सवाल शाह नहीं देर लगाई। नरसिंह जी ने टेर लगाई, सावल शाह नहीं देर लगाई। ऐसे बात करैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। हो पार करेंगे नैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। संकट से प्रहलाद उबारो, संकट से हमको भी उबारो। खम्भ फाड़ हरण्या को मारो, नरसिंह रूप धरैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। वो तेरी पार करेंगे नैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। अबला को देव शरण न कोई, स्वरी सभा में द्रौपदी रोई। अबला को दे शरण न कोई, भरी सभा में द्रौपदी रोई। पहुँचे चीर बढ़ैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। वो तेरी पार करेंगे नैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। विप्र सुदामा चावल लाए, प्रेम सहित हरि भोग लगाए। दीन सुदामा गले लगाए, कहकर भैया भैया, भजो कृष्ण कन्हैया। वो तेरी पार करेंगे नैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। वन में एक शिला थी भारी, चरण छुआए अहिल्या तारी। वन में एक शिला थी भारी, चरण छुआए अहिल्या तारी। भक्त जनों के रखैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। वो तेरी पार करेंगे नैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। वो तेरी पार करेंगे नैया, भज कृष्ण कन्हैया। कृष्ण कन्हैया लाल की जय।
Jay. Thank you, Tarunji, for a sweet bhajan like always. So thank you for that. Now let me recite a few lines that I came across. It's a very beautiful bhajan, but I'll recite a few lines only, just to stick to our 2-minute limit. भजो राधे गोविंद, भजो राधे गोविंद, भजो राधे गोविंद, भजो राधे गोविंद। भजो राधे गोविंद, भजो राधे गोविंद, भजो राधे गोविंद, भजो राधे गोविंद। भजो राधा राधा राधा, भजो राधा राधा राधा, भजो राधा राधा राधा, भजो राधा राधा राधा। सुमिरहु नित राधा, सुमिरहु नित राधा, सुमिरहु नित राधा, सुमिरहु नित राधा। मेरी स्वामिनी राधा, मेरी स्वामिनी राधा, मेरी स्वामिनी राधा, मेरी स्वामिनी राधा। भजो राधे गोविंद, भजो राधे गोविंद, भजो राधे गोविंद, भजो राधे गोविंद। All right. Radhe Radhe. So who else is there? Swati ji, you wanted to sing as well, real quick? Maybe that's the last hand for the day.
Radhe Radhe, Swati ji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. I'll take only 1 minute, not 1 to 2 minutes. Okay. मेरे तो आधार है श्री राधा की चरणार विंद। मेरे तो आधार है श्री राधा के चरणार विंद। राधा के चरणार विंद, श्री राधा के चरणार मेरे तो आधार है श्री राधा के चरणारविंद, राधा के चरणारविंद, श्याम के चरणारविंद, मेरे तो आधार है श्री राधा के चरणारविंद, राधा के चरणारविंद, प्यारी के चरणारविंद, राधा के चरणारविंद, प्यारी के चरणारविंद, मेरे तो आधार है श्री राधा के चरणारविंद, मेरी श्यामा के चरणारविंद, मेरी प्यारी के चरणारविंद, मेरी श्यामा के चरणारविंद, मेरी प्यारी के चरणारविंद, मेरे तो आधार है श्री राधा के चरणारविंद. Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Swati ji. Short and sweet, like always. Radhe Radhe. Great. So with that, we have come to the end of another daily wisdom session. So we'll continue on our discussion tomorrow, where we'll talk about the tools and techniques on how to burn the seeds which are there, which we may not even be aware of, and the seeds that your senses can surprise you with. So we'll talk about that, a systematic technology to tackle that with assurance and with confidence. And we'll continue on this shloka tomorrow as well. And look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Have a blessed day and a great rest of your evening and rest of your day. So thank you from my side. Radhe.
And I just wanted to read one comment from Ajit ji.
Mhm.
Wow, I like the new format of the session. It's like moving to the next level of the game.
New format. What was the new format? The soul
Like
soup?
I guess the soul soup also you said series, and then like there are distinct 3 segments. I suppose that's what.
We'll make it a buffet for you. Okay, so buffet, whatever it's called. So buffet for you, so that the soul soup segment is going to be more generic with regards to giving you practical tools, which anyway would come in Gita as well. And then we get into a shloka a day, going to the length and breadth as we will do with cross references, and then of course the chanting segment part of it. So we'll try to keep playing around with, so that it's an enriching experience for each one of you. And if you have any other feedback, feel free to share that as well.
And Preeti ji had also mentioned in the chat that she really loved the session and she was very grateful for that.
Thank you. Please keep your feedback coming in. Great. So thank you so much. And Monica ji, thank you for joining in from Mexico. Okay, don't land into any trouble with cartels and all that stuff. And we hope to see you back and do some road shows here as well. And Radhe
Yeah,
Radhe.
road shows are really waiting for you. Come soon.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Radhe Radhe. Good night. Good day.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you. See you all tomorrow.
Thank you, Kavita, Urf Chiki, Pratyusha,
Michelle ji.
whoever turned on their videos, and it's really nice of you to turn on. And Monica ji, of course, she always does that. Sham ji, and for all of you who are able to turn on their videos, always makes it an interactive. And Sri Ramya has done that as well. A guest appearance today. Okay, so thank you very much for that. It always helps, seeing some faces and knowing if things are falling, resonating with you or not. I mean, I can't make out much, but at least a little bit of that I can get it, and makes it a little more engaging. Thank you, everybody. Radhe Radhe. Good night, good day from my side.
Radhe Radhe.